Small businesses are ready to thrive again and looking for resources to rise to the challenge. That's why Dell Technologies has assembled an all-star lineup of podcasters for a third year in a row to create a virtual conference to share advice and inspiration for small businesses. Whether you're still working remotely or back together again, let Dell Technologies help safeguard your business with modern devices and Windows 11 Pro. Search Dell Technologies Small Business Podference on Odyssey.com, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, starting on May 10th.
What's up? Welcome in. Hoge and Jahns with you right before rookie minicamp gets going at Halas Hall. We see some of these draft picks in person. What's up, Johnsy?
Good to see you, Adam. I think today's the day, right? Thursday, they arrive.
Yeah.
Take the practice field Friday, get out of here on Mother's Day. I feel like there's a lot of Mother's Day mini camps we've covered in years past.
Because they usually are right after the draft.
Yeah.
There were a couple of years where they were two weeks after the draft. Because you could do them either way. Like half the teams do them this weekend, half the teams do them next weekend.
I'd rather do it next weekend.
Yeah,
all the moms out there.
You don't have the Kentucky Derby on Saturday, and you don't have Mother's Day on Sunday.
About the Derby, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah,
that's fine. Back to business.
I couldn't name a single horse in the Derby right now at this point.
No.
But
how many undrafted free agents can you name that the Bears have signed?
Well, how many undrafted free agents can I name that would be a sweet name for a Kentucky Derby horse?
Ooh.
Like, how about Smoke Monday as a horse name? That's a great horse name. Smoke? Come on.
Monday? Why not?
Yeah, I could name some undrafted free agents. Bears ones. Not just the Badger.
I feel like there's so many.
Well, there are.
They have to.
There's like 20 of them.
And there's tryout players out there. That's where it gets confusing if you're tracking it online out there. Some of those players that are announcing that they're Bears whatever, some of it's just an invite.
Yeah.
To minicamp, which is what Ryan Pace used to do. Phil Emery never did that, but Ryan Pace did that as well.
Well, we'll get into some of the things we were looking forward to seeing this weekend at Halas Hall, including some of those UDFAs. I'll give you a couple names I'll be keeping an eye on. Not just the Badger, I promise. Anyway, welcome in. We have a good guest for you today to talk about this draft class and some other things around the NFC North as well. Follow us on Twitter, at Adam Hoge, at Adam Jahns. You can read Johnsy on The Athletic, theathletic.com/Hoge and Jahns, where you go to get those subscriptions. I am at allchgo.com. You can get those memberships there as well. And my post-draft Bears Things column is up, where I went through and ranked all the Bears draft picks in terms of how likely they are to be active week one and contribute right away. So you can check that out and some other thoughts, random stuff on the draft class as well there. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube. Hit the notification button so you know when our episodes go live. And what else? ObviousShirts.com, where you get the merch. A lot of good merch up there for the summer, T-shirts, our trucker hats. It's all up there. So make sure you check it out. All right. We had Nick Baumgardner on before the draft, and he gave us a lot of good insight, so we thought it'd be a good idea to bring him back on after the draft to hear what he had to say about some of the Bears picks, and he has a big piece up on the undrafted free agents right now on The Athletic too, so a lot of good insight from Nick. So we had a chance to talk to him earlier, and might as well kick this thing off with Nick Baumgardner right now. All right, let's bring Nick Baumgardner back into the podcast. We had him pre-draft. Now we bring him in the aftermath of the Bears 11 draft pick, senior writer at The Athletic. You should be following him on Twitter, at Nick Baumgardner. So you've had some time to digest not only the Bears draft, but really everyone's draft. What's your biggest takeaway from what Ryan Poles did in his first NFL draft as a GM?
And we were just talking, I don't know. And the initial reaction that I had at the draft was similar to what everyone else had, which is early on, it's like, why are you not getting more help for Fields? But then, I stopped and looked at it and I'm like, well, all the guys, most of the guys they took for the most part, and there's some, swings later in that draft. They're good players. They got good players. And I think that honestly, the more I thought about it, because my initial reaction was like, I'm not quite sure what they're doing here. But I also was kind of like, well, I don't really need to know what they're doing. That's for them to decide. If these are the guys that they had higher on their board, And, Brisker is a terrific example. That's amazing value for where they got him. So I don't dislike it. I like that they took chances on some guys right now, and I like that they kind of did their own thing. But, all the criticisms I think are kind of fair too. So it's definitely an interesting draft. It wasn't boring at all.
Did you like the receiver class, especially when it came to day 2, day 3? I think you saw some teams, I want to use the word reach because it's their own boards, but guys went earlier than expected.
I think that they did. And I wonder if some of the, and I liked it because I like I'm a big believer in every year now we're seeing more and more NFL ready receivers coming out deeper and deeper. Like the Bears got Velus Jones, who's a great, really good football player who was great at Senior Bowl. I think he was a 3rd round pick. I mean, that's or 4th. What was Velus in?
3rd round,
71. Yeah. Yep.
So that's good value, and I don't mind him there. Some of them I think, that I saw go off a little early. Like Tyquan Thornton was a little earlier. One of the Baylor guys, and maybe I'm missing his name up. But some of those guys were maybe a little earlier than you would have thought. But for the most part, I didn't mind it. I thought that was okay, and it really comes down to preference. Like some people would nitpick, well, you passed on George Pickens, and it's like, well, maybe you don't like George Pickens. Maybe you like one of the other guys. Maybe you like Velus better for what he can give you, and put him in there, and we'll see. So, I like the receiver class, but I like it every year now. I think that's something that's building, and we'll see it most years.
Do you think Velus Jones is somebody that can get on the field pretty quickly? Because I feel like they ended up targeting a guy that they feel like they can work in their offense pretty fast, as opposed to maybe one of these X type receivers that we see it every year. Some of these receivers they take a year to really get going before they can be depended on.
Yeah, Velus is one of those guys that has that wiggle and the explosion just to get open underneath, and he can just beat guys, in that tight window space area without needing help, without needing much else. In Detroit, we see it a lot from Amon-Ra St. Brown, who doesn't have as much explosion as Velus in terms of the straight line speed, but he's really hard to deal with in those tight windows, and he knows how to get open. And he's exactly the type of guy Chicago could put into the offense, I think, in ways that would help the run game and the pass game. He's a guy that you could involve. You could get him in the jet series. You could get him involved out wide and get him going in the screen game and every other way possible. It's an option and a gadget and a weapon for Justin Fields, who, as we've seen throughout his career so far, which is young and growing, he'll find guys. If you put him out there, he can find them. I mean, that's part of the appeal there. So I like that pick a lot. That was a good one.
As you're live blogging the draft, and it gets to day 3, and Ryan Poles decides to take every single phone call that's being made to Dallas Hall, he starts moving around. He starts moving around some more. I'm just curious, what's your initial reaction? And then what do you think of the process of it, especially when you look at the Bears roster, the number of needs, and just the number of players they needed to fill out that roster?
And I liked it. And I think that made me feel better about it in the end, that they were able to stack more. And then you could see that they were able to take some chances on some linemen, later. Because that was my big thing. I was when I was looking at the Bears up there in the second, it was take a tackle, take one of these guys up here and give Fields more help up front. But, they took some guys late that could project into something. And the fact that they were cognizant of that, I think, was important. And, everyone saw, I guess now Poles doing the humble brag about other people calling him and saying that everybody, whatever it was. But I could say probably on day 3, he's probably not wrong. He probably did snag a few guys because they had a lot of picks and they took a lot of swings down there. And you're right. You're just starting. It's brand new. This is the time right now to take those swings because they're going to be less easy to sell, in 2 years or even in a year. So I didn't mind it as much. And I actually think that the fact that they got more late helped me sort of think, okay, I like the class better. And I think in the long run, it's going to have more of a chance to maybe be more beneficial than people see.
What do you know about these 4 offensive linemen that they drafted on day 3?
I mean, they're all projecty, right? They're all traits guys. All those guys down there, for the most part. I'm trying to pull up the names here. We've got Kramer from Illinois. I mean, he's another example of one. So, I mean, you've got these guys down here that are everyone down as an offensive lineman in 5, 6, and 7 usually ends up being these guys that they do one or two things really well. So it's they have really good burst. They're agile, but they're on the island of misfit toys because they're off on whether it's height or arm length or whatever else it is. So I would say they got a couple of tackles. They got a center. Was there a guard in there too?
Couple guards.
Yeah, a couple. Zach Thomas, who they think can play guard but played left tackle. Yeah.
So they got guys with traits and they got guys that played multiple positions. And I think that's what I saw. Guys that, like, when you were talking about depth, and you guys know, I mean, offensive line depth is like damn near impossible in the NFL these days to keep anything like usable. So I didn't mind it at all. I liked it. I liked the fact that they took chances on guys that could play multiple spots, that have traits, and we'll see. And you develop them and see what happens. Sometimes those guys work out.
In terms of where the Bears draft maybe fits with the Lions, the Packers, the Vikings, you see Gordon, you see Brisker, potential day one starters for the defense. But in terms of what the other teams have added in the division, how do they stack up?
Well, I think that's a great question because I think the Bears are at a different point as well as where the Lions are a great example. I think the Bears probably this year had a better draft in like totality than the Lions had last year when they were at ground zero. So I think the Bears ground zero is better than the Lions was. I don't think the Bears had a better draft than any of those teams, but I would say in terms of long range potential for what you need to get done right now, because like you guys said at the top, they have so many needs. It's hard to just where they were without, top premium picks. It's going to be hard to really cross off a name and say, he's a guy. And they actually kind of found one in Brisker that I think you can kind of cross off and say, boom, guy. And Gordon, guy. Like you said, there's two guys right there. So it's hard to do when you're just starting. And I think the picks that they inherited, which wasn't much, they did the best they could with it. I didn't hate it, but I think it's going to be behind some of those other teams in the North, but they're also rebuilding. I think that has to be taken into account as well.
Okay, taking into account that like none of us really actually know how any of these players are going to turn out. Why is it though that like and this is I think we all experience this. As soon as the draft's over, and maybe it's just because of where they end up and which defense or which offense and the fits, because fit is everything, quite frankly. But like it's almost like as soon as the draft's over, within 24 hours, we're like, oh yeah, that right there was a good pick. He's gonna fit in right away. He's gonna be a week one starter. And then like even with the number one overall pick, we're all like, what the hell were they doing? Like he wasn't even the best player on his own defensive line. Like why does that happen?
Because you end up watching more. You end up seeing more. And you're like, well, wait a minute now. Hang on a second. It's like it's the same thing that I think all the scouts go through 12 months a year, where they're like, I don't know. The more you see, that's why I always make the case for college basketball players to go. Don't come back. The more tape they get on you, the more holes they poke, and the worse it looks. So it's just about the more you watch, the worse it ends up looking. But this is going to be tough because it's a rebuild, and people are going to have that long range view. I see it a lot in Detroit, and it's like it's hard, but you have to sort of lean into it and accept it because that's why you're in this position. It wasn't good, and you have to sort of accept that and then rebuild out of it.
How excited were the Lions that Aiden Hutchinson was there? Speaking of the first overall pick, and it just
the NFL got mad at them. They turned the card in too fast.
Yeah,
and the league got mad. They actually did that last year too with Sewell, and the league got mad at them, and they were like, "You can't do that. You have to wait until." Because I think they turned it in before the Jaguars turned their pick in. So they were like, "He's not even been picked yet. Like we don't know." They're like, "Oh, okay, hang on, we'll wait."
Sorry.
And then they're like, "Okay, we got it." So yeah, they were pretty happy. They were excited with him. So, and I think that's a good fit. But like, hey, if the Bears had a pick up in the top 10. People would think about this draft differently because you'd have a guy up there that you'd be like, man, boom, right there. Put him in and let's go. And actually, they kind of did get two guys on the back end that you could look at and say, maybe that is the case. So the more you look at the Bears draft, I actually think the better it ends up looking, but it's still, I think the criticisms are fair.
You had a lengthy piece up on The Athletic, I think today actually, but with a UDFA for every single team that you like to watch. And for the Bears, you went with Jack Sanborn, the linebacker out of Wisconsin.
Yeah, they had a good class. Master Teague's in there, the running back from Ohio State. Gene DeLance, who was a big-time recruit. He's got like 37, 38-inch arms or something crazy like this. It was a deep class. Chase Allen, the tight end from Iowa State, who was a leader there for them. Sanborn is a guy I think that the more I watched at Wisconsin over the years, he always found a way. There are coverage questions with a guy like that, but like in terms of where the Bears are at right now, get solid football players in here who know how to do one thing really well. He can put him in the box and he can play on first down and you're not going to get screwed. And he knows how to fit the run. He's not going to get burned in the underneath stuff. Smart player who I think could add value. And, those are what you're looking for when you're trying to rebuild guys that'll just come in and go to work. And that's a pretty deep solid class. So that's another thing too. I think you can't overlook that. The Bears are going to have a really competitive camp. I think that's probably something I would take away here is that you're going to heat it up and see what happens, and you might be okay if some guys get unseated that you're a little surprised at, because that's how growth happens.
Especially for those linebackers. That's an underrated, overlooked position of need. I think Adam wanted more praise for Wisconsin, because I don't know if you could see it up there above his head. Yeah, just wanted more Badger talk, but we could skip that part right now.
I can handle that later. Don't worry.
And then we'll skip that too.
Yeah, probably.
He's a local kid too.
Yeah, he's
Lake
from right
Zurich
down
High
the road in Lake Zurich.
Well, he'll play his ass off for the Bears. There you go. I loved it. I mean, like they had a nice class there in the signings. So,
Which team did the best? Like, who had your favorite draft, and and whose draft did you like? Roll your eyes at.
The Ravens are still the one I think that I come back to. A lot of people pointed at the Jets. Some people pointed at the Chiefs. The Ravens are the ones that I'm still like, every pick they made was like, okay, yeah, I got it. Yeah. Like, this is pretty good. Like, this is really,
and it's
really
the way
good.
they maneuver the draft, isn't it?
And it's like, they just sit there. And they just don't do it. Like, sometimes they just sit there. And it's amazing how they'll just sit there. And you'd be like, oh, what about this guy? I forgot about him. And they're like, oh, the Ravens just took him. You're like, oh, yeah. You're like, right, everyone forgot about him, and there he goes. So they're always the one for me. And then, I guess on the other side of it, New England's is just, and it's another one where it's like, I liked a lot of the guys. I like Cole Strange, but it's like a really high pick, Like, I mean, there's a lot in there that's like, these are good players, but my God, what are you doing? Like, why are you taking them here, right? So that's the one that still remains sort of a head scratcher, I guess.
Yeah, I love the Ravens draft too. It just the way they like handle draft currency. Like Hollywood Brown was like the 25th overall pick or something, somewhere in the mid 20s, and then they get 3 years out of him, and he's good, he's not great, and they trade him for a better pick, 23, and then they trade back and they get even more out of that, and then they land Tyler freaking Lindenbaum, like. Who could have been a top 10 guy, and then Kyle Hamilton, who probably could have been top 5 guy, depending on and you just know, like, when they draft those guys are going to be good, because it's
and
the
then
Ravens.
They just lose their starting center in free agency.
They did.
Bradley Bozeman,
they had a need, yeah. And this is like Marshall Yanda's like little brother here at Iowa. I mean, this is like the Ravens are the best at this, in my opinion. Right now, like, there's not a better team in terms of organizational confidence and everything. The Colts are pretty good too. The Colts are up there, but the Ravens right now are, for my money, pretty good at this.
One more NFC North question. No offensive players in the first round, right? And then they trade up for Christian Watson. I'm just knowing what we know as NFC North calls gurus, and knowing how things can get precarious with a certain quarterback with the number of 12, up in Green Bay. I'm just. Your thoughts on that situation, and getting a receiver that's going to need some time to
but he's the guy that all the people were drooling over too. He's the traits guy on day 2 that everybody. So I was definitely, after day 1, you're like, okay, they did not do what maybe we thought they could do here, and like you said, I mean, maybe Aaron is not happy, but to take Watson, I was like, okay, well, maybe that gets him back a little bit, because he does need a little time. But oh my God, this guy with all the stuff, like he at the Senior Bowl, he was the most impressive like individual athlete. And there were times where Chris Burke and I were standing there, and I was like, he looks like he's running 70%, like he's gliding. So when he really figures it out, he could be amazing. And so I wonder if that curbed it for him a little bit. And but you're right, like he's going to need some time, but also he's got Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball. Aaron can throw him open. I think he could figure it out. That kid's pretty special. So. Maybe it works out in the end there. But yeah, definitely interesting that they didn't take, a shot at one of those other bigger receivers early, I guess.
Well, and the one play that's all over Christian Watson's tape that is like, because you could like kind of quibble about how dynamic the tape is and things like that, like how it compares to even like a George Pickens, like is it really that special? But the one thing that pops up every single game is a long bomb where he's just wide open down the middle of the field, and it's like, okay, well, that could work with Aaron Rodgers. That could play.
How did he get that open? How is he this open, right? He's 8 foot tall. So it's like something's got to be working here, right? Yeah, I agree.
Okay, one more, though, I have on the Lions. Another draft without a quarterback. Like, what's the plan there? Jameson Williams is obviously very good. They add Aiden Hutchinson. I don't really have any problems with their actual draft. It's just, what's the plan at quarterback?
So my read on it at this point is that, you've now loaded up a little bit more offensively. The offensive line, which they really think could be very good, is going to be healthy. And now you say with Jared Goff, okay, like this is your year. Let's go see what you have. And if the answer is not enough, then you maybe take the assets next year, package them, go up and see if you can get, somebody in a better quarterback class next year. And if the answer is Goff surprises you, then Goff surprises you. And maybe that's a different conversation. But from all things, and no one's really said this, but from just piecing together all things that we've seen and heard, it really does feel like to me that they wanted this year to be Goff's, like, no question about it. There's not anybody coming in behind you. Don't worry about it. Just go play, and we'll see what happens. Because we're not trying, like, if they don't make the playoffs this year, no one's going to really care one way or the other. So it's like, I think they're going to let him go with some weapons and see what happens. Because I think a little bit of his last year, they thought maybe it's not so fair to judge him. And then you'll get your full judgment at the end of the year. And, they will have extra first-round picks to work with next year. I don't know how much you're going to need, but, we know that next year's quarterback class is better than this year's. So that is definitely something I think that they're certainly eyeing or keeping in their pocket.
Yeah, I wanted to point that out. It became pretty clear as those quarterbacks waited and waited and waited what the NFL felt about this year's quarterback class.
Right, and next year's. So yes, exactly.
Yes,
right.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, hey Nick, great stuff. We appreciate it. Everybody should be checking out all of the outstanding coverage Nick has on The Athletic, theathletic.com/Hoge Jahns for those subscriptions. Go check them out. And especially the UDFA piece. There's a lot of good stuff in here. So thank you so much, Nick. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, guys. Anytime.
Thanks, Nick.
We here at Team Hoge Jahns are big coffee drinkers. Gotta make sure we're awake whenever news breaks. Sometimes we stay up late to podcast for you. What better to keep us fueled than great coffee? Trade Coffee connects customers to the freshest and best tasting coffee they've ever made at home by partnering with the country's best craft roasters. These are independent businesses from big cities and small towns. Trade customers are truly impactful for these independent roasters, often being the largest source of growth for them. So Trade Coffee sends you freshly roasted beans from 60 of the country's best craft roasters. Whether your friends call you a coffee snob or you just know when the coffee tastes really perfect, Trade's real coffee experts personally taste test over 450 roasts so they know exactly what to recommend for you. Because the truth is, what I like and what you like can be totally different. You'll love their selection of specific coffees that are different from anyone else's taste. Just answer a couple questions, you'll get your own personalized variety of coffee delivered to you. As often as you like, no gimmicks. Trade delivers a bag of freshly roast coffee, as whole beans are ground or however you brew it at home. And they guarantee you'll love your first order or they'll replace it for free. Right now, Trade's offering new subscribers a total of $30 off your first order plus free shipping when you go to drinktrade.com/Adam22. That's more than 40 cups of coffee for free. Get started by taking the quiz at drinktrade.com/Adam22 and let Trade find a coffee that you'll love. That's drinktrade.com/Adam22 for $30 off. And don't forget about Mother's Day. Trade subscription's a perfect gift for the coffee lover in your life. Life can be overwhelming, and many people are burned out without even knowing it. Symptoms can include lack of motivation, feeling helpless or trapped, detachment, fatigue, and more. For me, it feels like just not getting enough sleep. We associate burnout with work, but that's not the only cause. Any of our roles in life can lead us to feel burned out. BetterHelp Online Therapy wants to remind you to prioritize yourself. Talking with someone can help you figure out what's causing stress in your life. Sometimes we think so much about the things we have to get done day to day that we don't stop and think about ourselves. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Hoge Jahns listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Hoge. That's BetterHelp.com/HOGE.
No one likes waiting on a paycheck, especially when you've got bills due. Good thing there's Chime. Now you can get your paycheck up to 2 days early with direct deposit. It's up to 2 more days to save, pay bills, and generally just feel good about your money situation. But Chime is more than just about getting paid early. It's also an award-winning mobile app, checking account, debit card, and optional savings account. So what are you waiting for? Hopefully not your paycheck. Get started with Chime today. Applying for a free account takes less than 2 minutes. Get started at chime.com/Adams. That's chime.com/Adams. The Chime Credit Builder Visa credit card is issued by Stride Bank North America pursuant to a license from Visa USA, Chime checking account, and a $200 qualifying direct deposit required to apply for the secured Chime Credit Builder Visa credit card. Regular on-time payment history can have a positive impact on your credit score. Impact the score may vary, and some users' scores may not approve.
All right, appreciate Nick Baumgardner coming back on the podcast post-draft. Some interesting situations around the NFC North. The one team we didn't talk about much was the Vikings.
Yeah. But even what he was just saying about the Lions, I still think it applies to the Vikings, about the quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. It's just a reminder that there's only so many good quarterbacks out there. Like, you see the Lions sticking out with Jared Goff. We know the Vikings just love to stick it out with Kirk Cousins. There's only so many good quarterbacks out there. It affects your roster, all those things. But just another reminder.
At least those two teams have quarterbacks that are not disasters. How about that? I mean, there's definitely worse quarterback situations out there than what the Vikings and
Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah. Well, that's self-created by trading away Russell Wilson. But, I put like Washington as an example. Like, what are they doing?
Carolina,
they can't find anybody. I think the Giants are tiptoeing in that area right now with Daniel Jones.
They didn't pick up his fifth-year option. I think they're beyond tiptoeing. They're running away.
Yeah. And certainly the Bears have been there plenty of times before, too.
You sure?
So, and none of those teams have Aaron Rodgers, which is where you want to be. But, yeah, good stuff from Nick. We appreciate him jumping on again. We wanted to jump into some of the happenings that'll be going on at House Hall this weekend with the rookie class coming in. I guess, Johns, I'll ask you this. What's the most exciting thing that you're looking forward to seeing? There's no Justin Fields walking down the practice field this year at rookie minicamp where that's going to command all the attention. And, unfortunately, there is not a giant kicking competition going on either with 8 kickers.
That was 2 years ago.
I think that was 3 years ago now.
Oh, time flies. Yes, last year was definitely a different vibe with Fields being traded up for and whatnot. This year, I want to see how Kyler Gordon moves. The Bears spoke at length about how his movement skills were elite, special. He's got that ballet background. He's got that kung fu background. I want to see it. I also want to see who's like throwing and targeting him. I haven't looked at the undrafted free agent list. Remember a couple years ago, they had like some local kids from like D3 schools out there throwing the ball around.
I don't think they've signed a quarterback.
Maybe tryout guys coming in. Drew Pitt, Ball State.
Okay.
I could be wrong about that, but I got him on a list here. Is he testing Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker? I don't know, but I want to see how I want to see how the second round picks move, especially Gordon.
Yeah, I want to see that too. I'm interested in getting eyes on these offensive linemen, just kind of sizing them up, what they look like, body type things, guard, tackle. I mean, you get an idea on tape, but that'll be interesting. And then
you want to see if they look the part, right?
Yeah, exactly. You can kind of tell right away, like, all right, that guy needs to slim down or he needs to tone up a little bit, whatever it is, you can get a good idea. And Dominique Robinson too, like, can't say I watched a whole lot of Miami, Ohio football last year. So, they described as an athletic freak, and I'm just curious what he looks like. Maybe they could throw him out there at wide receiver.
Test Kyler Gordon. He is a former wide receiver.
Yeah, that was a joke, but maybe. But Velus Jones Jr. can test Kyler Gordon. It'll be interesting. Just
like that's the one-on-one matchup.
Yeah.
Right? That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It's rookie minicamp.
In terms of the undrafted free agents, I think there's 3 names to watch above the others, and it is a long list. We talked about Sanborn earlier. Nick also mentioned Chase Allen. I think he's somebody that's intriguing because he's a pretty good blocker, and he's got a big catch radius. But he's not the most athletic at tight ends, which is why I think he fell out of the draft. But he still could be able to surprise. And then Gene DeLance is the guy with traits that's, I think, very interesting that of the O linemen could sneak in with those other 4 guys that got drafted. That's 5 offensive linemen, Johns. We're talking pre-draft at that minicamp. We're like, who the hell? Like, there's just not enough offensive linemen here. Just numbers, regardless of who they are. And now all of a sudden you put in at least 5 guys there that will at least fill out your training camp third string, right? Because like that was one of my things. Was just like, how the hell are they going to field 3 teams?
They need bodies,
right?
They need bodies. I think it's always interesting to look at where the potential holes are for an undrafted guy to step in and make the team. I love stories like that. Mm-hmm. With these undrafted guys, they should know there's a lot of holes. Like, they may take 2 or 3 of you in the secondary. I think for sure, absolutely, Jack Sanborn has a real chance to make this team. Why? I think he's a capable player. And 2, they need help at linebacker.
Yeah.
Nicholas Morrow is not the long-term answer there. I'm not saying Jack Sanborn will be either, but there's an opportunity for him to make an impression. Receivers, same thing.
Yeah, I think Sanborn, though, can like immediately help at that Sam spot because that's not even really a starting position. And a big reason why is because of what Matt Eberflus said down at the NFL annual meeting, where he said that guy also needs to be able to back up the Mike and Will. And that's where he played at Wisconsin. Granted, it was a different scheme, but the point is, like, he immediately, it's not just ability and the fact that the Bears probably had a draftable grade on him and he fell out, but he fits that. There's a reason why they were aggressive in going out and getting Jack Sanborn, because I think he fits into the defensive depth chart, not to mention special teams depth chart too.
How much do you think everything Ryan Poles said, like leading up to the draft, about resilience, targeting some undrafted guys in free agency? Lucas Patrick, not drafted. Byron Pringle, not drafted. Like, you need to sign guys regardless, but I'm curious if the Jack Sanborn, again, is from the Chicago area, but some of these guys may have been interested in the Bears just because of Ryan Poles' philosophy. The opportunity that not only exists because of the roster structure, but because of the open-mindedness of Ryan Poles.
Yeah. And look, I guarantee that that's a conversation that these guys probably have with their agents before the draft, because that's the great, everyone wants to get drafted because you get to say you got drafted. But if you don't, the upside is you get to pick where you go. And so you look at fit, you look at opportunity. And the Bears provide a lot of opportunity. Depending on the position, but most positions, there's opportunity to make this roster. And so I have to think that they had to be one of the more competitive places to go. If you're one of these undrafted free agents, I would think that the Bears would be a spot you would want to go, because your chances of making the 53-man roster and playing in the NFL are higher than some of these other spots.
Yeah, the key word the key word to me is probably intriguing. If you're an agent looking at the Bears, then it's opportunity. I'm interested to see what these undrafted guys could do. Usually there's 1 or 2 that catch your eye where, he's going to be, at the very least, a pain in the butt for some of these starting players in training camp. Like, he'll compete his ass off and give these starters a good look. That's what you're looking for sometimes.
They also signed a bunch of wide receivers that I do not know a whole lot about. So, considering that's still a major position of need, I will be watching them too. Just to
fast
see if
guys. I want to see fast guys.
Yeah. And then I think you saw they picked up Chris Fink off waivers. Oh, Notre Dame wide receiver. I'm pretty sure he's eligible to participate in minicamp, because I don't think he's rookie minicamp, because I don't think he's played. You know how every year there's like a handful of
they're eligible
veterans that they're not necessarily veterans. They're still on their rookie deals, but they're UDFAs, practice squad guys that haven't really played a whole lot. You're going to see guys like that. So that's something.
Well, in that case, you're looking for speed, right? Their ability to separate, make plays. You look at, again, opportunities to make plays in settings where receivers should have the advantage over some defensive backs.
Is the Bears' third quarterback eligible for rookie minicamp? Ryan Willis?
Well, I don't know. They haven't sent out the roster yet.
I know. That's why we're kind of guessing.
What is it? It's 2:38 p.m. on Thursday. No roster yet.
Okay. So he came out undrafted in 2020. He has not played. I'm pretty sure Ryan Willis can throw passes at minicamp this weekend.
Good.
So
someone
that which would make sense if they sign one QB. You said they signed one guy. I bet you we'll see him. Trevor Simeon's not. He started games in the NFL.
A few, more than a few.
Yeah. No, he's got some legit experience. Sorry, Kevin Fishbane. No Trevor Simeon.
Breakdown.
Otherwise, you probably wouldn't even need to go this weekend. He'd be so excited he'd just be there the whole time.
With his purple hat.
He may be that way anyway with Chris Bergen being there.
That's right. Now, is he an invite guy or a signee?
No, he's an invite. Tryout guy.
Tryout
yeah.
guy. Okay.
And the coaches will love him immediately.
Didn't
he's a maniac.
He lead the Northwestern in tackles?
I think he led the country in tackles.
He's a maniac. Did you say maniac?
Yeah, maniac.
Okay. Let's see it.
He's an undersized,
maniac.
Classic Northwestern linebacker maniac who, don't be surprised if he sticks around just because the coaches, when he got to Northwestern, he was like, same thing. It was just like, kind of like, oh, here's a guy who's here. And then immediately they were like, oh, this guy's one of our best practice players. We could throw him on special teams right away, which is what they ended up doing. And he went out there and made plays. And then he became a starter at linebacker for 3 years.
The part of the evaluations here that's always overlooked is that you need good practice players.
Yes.
You do. Again, to be a pain in the ass to the starters.
And what you're trying to say there, Johns, is that they're actually looking for those people.
Correct.
Like they will sign a guy kind of knowing he's probably not going to make the 53-man roster, but if he's going to do everything right, participate in the meetings, learn everything there is to know, and help the team by practicing hard and being a good scout team player, then you can make money in the NFL that way.
You know, as a training camp fan favorite, who was that? Was Tanner Gentry. He was a pain in the butt for those defensive backs because he was a go up and get it guy. Couldn't always do it consistently in games. That's why he was always a practice squad player, but we saw it in camp all the time, and that was against starters. Those starters needed that.
I did not expect Tanner Gentry's name to be dropped today in this podcast.
Here we are.
But now would be the right time of year to have it dropped.
Yes.
I would say
I think he's still in the Bills roster.
I think he might be too. Good for him, man. Good for him. All right, well, should be fun. We will be back early next week with our normal episode on Tuesday, and we will recap everything there is to recap from the weekend. The coordinators are going to talk, too.
Matt Eberflus on Friday, Alan Williams and Richard Hightower on Saturday, and Luke Getsy on Sunday.
There it is. So
there's the schedule.
Yep. And the two of us will be juggling rookie minicamp and baseball games.
Correct.
I'm sure, all weekend long. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we will. We got opening day Saturday. We
played last night. We got a game tonight. I got 4 games next week. That's just one son. Got a game on Sunday. Oh, a lot of baseball in the Johns household. I would say that the Johns boys combined are going to play probably about 90 baseball games this summer. Woo! Heaven help me.
Yeah. And that is just a good lesson for everybody out there not to have 8 children.
Just 3.
It's fun. You love it.
I do.
Yeah, we got opening day, and we're the Red Sox. I don't know how I feel about that, but
our house league team is the Cubs.
Well, good luck. Hope you don't play the White Sox.
I have nothing to say to that after this weekend. after recent events.
Follow us on Twitter at Adam Hoge, at Adam Johns. We'll have coverage all weekend, whether that's rookie minicamp or random children's baseball games. We'll have that for you on Twitter and social media. And make sure you get those subscriptions with The Athletic, theathletic.com/Hoge Jahns, allchgo.com. Subscribe on YouTube. obviousshirts.com. Thankful for our friends over there with all the great merchandise you can get there. So check it all out. We appreciate everybody. Talk to you Tuesday.
See ya.
Hey, what's up, Floos?